All right, so let's go back into the marriage thing, right?
All right.
So I want to ask you a question, right? So I remember this is why I came back. When I talked to you last time,
Sure.
I brought up the situation with Paul in that First Corinthians scripture,
Mm-hmm.
and I also brought up the Matthew thing
Yep.
when I said that Christ had a restriction on his,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like Paul did not have a restriction on his in First Corinthians. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to put words in your mouth. These were your exact words when I brought that up. You said that that scripture was not talking about divorce. Now, the other brother who was talking, when he was speaking on if he believed that he doesn't believe that a non-believer or his Muslim wife, if or he would marry an atheist and that he would divorce his woman if she turns Muslim. You came in and he said that he doesn't agree with Paul regarding divorcement. You said out your own mouth, brother. So how do you want to handle First Corinthians, which was the same chapter that I brought up last time that you said was not about divorcement, and now today you're saying that that same scripture that I brought up is about divorcement when he referenced that you can divorce your wife if she goes Muslim. So what's going on?
Yeah, I would have to go back and watch. I doubt I said that the entirety of First Corinthians wasn't about divorce. I got a
No, it
feeling
was the
what.
scripture.
Yeah, I got a feeling what you referred to right there was 10, right? So it says, "To the
Mhm.
married I give this command: a wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and a husband must not divorce his wife." So in that context of First Corinthians 7, it's not talking about divorce; it's talking about separation.
Now let me ask you a question because
Now,
this is something
and
me and
then
my
yeah, so we can go
okay.
on in Corinthians, right? But if the
Mhm.
unbeliever leaves, let him go. That can be about divorce. So we were talking about First Corinthians 7, verse 10 through 11. Now we're talking about 12 through
Mhm.
15, two different things.
Okay, now here's the issue with that. When me and my mother were watching that,
Sure.
she even asked, she said, well, when I look at First Corinthians 10, the scripture has to be about divorce because when you look at the very last word, it says unmarried. Unmarried means divorce. So if she leaves, that means she's being divorced because she says, if she leaves, let her remain unmarried, means let her remain divorced. So in that text, it's saying if she divorces, let her remain divorced,
All
unmarried.
right. Let's go to the blue letter really quick.
Nah, so
Let's take a look
specifically,
before I continue.
yeah.
You can go
And
ahead,
real, can
Isaiah.
I add this real
Yeah,
quick,
you can.
Nas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, in that First Corinthians 11 and 10, separation is the idea that she is not at the present moment with her husband, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that there's been a divorcement. It's just that she's separated from the union itself, right? Because separation doesn't automatically denote divorcing. So if she's living in her own house, going about saying that she's unmarried, yeah, she cannot marry somebody else. Let her remain unmarried, right? Lest she be
Well, nah, that would
reconciled, lest
that
lest she be
yeah.
reconciled back unto her husband. So
Let
by
yeah.
covenant, by covenantal agreement,
Mhm.
because it says if she separates,
Mhm.
separation doesn't automatically denote divorce.
That's true. That's
And
true.
another
But
key
Now,
there,
now, now,
now,
if
yeah,
you,
I would add the last key there is he says she needs to be reconciled to her husband. If she wasn't married, would that be her husband?
huh?
If she's not married, is the man she's reconciling with her husband?
It's the man she's reconciling with her
Is
husband.
it her husband? It says
In the
she needs to be
in
reconciled
the
to her
eyes of God,
husband.
in the eyes of God, yeah, in the eyes of God, that would still be her husband.
Boom,
On
exactly.
paper,
So
that's
we
not her
agree.
husband.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. On paper, we
Right.
do whatever paper wants. We only refer to God here, so sure. But then, like the
All
same
right.
thing
So
in God's eyes, yeah,
okay,
they're still
that,
married. They're only separated.
that's that's cool. But on the other guy's ideology, I would have to disagree because it would have just simply said if she leaves, allow her to remain separated. You know what I'm saying? Or if she leaves, you know what it would have just said separated. But it says if she leaves, and it had in the same context, let her remain unmarried. So it's saying that if she decides to leave or divorce, allow her to remain unmarried. It doesn't say allow her to remain separated. The key
yeah,
thing is unmarried at the end of the sentence. So when you have unmarried, that means she has to be divorced in
yeah,
order
yeah.
to remain unmarried.
Nah, brother.
Yeah. So the
Yeah,
question,
so
real quick, King,
yeah, I
because
just
I
want to
have
add
I
this
have a
to the
preliminary
definition
question
of the
for that.
word. I just want to get to the definition of the word. The word can mean unmarried, true. The word can mean virgin, or the word can mean someone who, for the sake of serving God, has chosen to be single, has chosen to be alone.
Okay,
The word can have multiple meanings.
so we got some fire in right now.
So, hey,
We got some
real quick,
fire. We got to choose which one. We got to choose
this
which one then.
question.
How that?
And we
Wait,
use the
I do want to
context.
ask this question
Go ahead,
though.
Azar.
Yeah, I do want to ask this question. Just like Nas said, why does it say let her be reconciled
To
back
her
unto her
husband.
husband?
Because like I said,
Why does
she's
it say
still
her husband?
because like I said, in God's eyes, she's still married, but on paper, she's not.
No,
So,
brother. She's not married.
wait, hold on, King, hold on. So, does paper matter or does God matter more? Which one is actually
At
substantiating
all.
more power over
If
which?
you
Because
actually read in that same context, Paul said it himself, he's not speaking by commandment, but by as a man. So sometimes his ruling seems as if at the moment it's the commandment of man that's speaking over God's.
Okay. I think Paul.
so legality has no premise. Real quick, so legality has no premise over what God says. If
No,
God
according
says
to
that
no
this is still
Paul's
her
writing,
husband,
this Paul's writing is giving this influence, not me.
no, yeah, I
I'm not the one
understand.
that I don't speak by command, but only by man. I don't talk like that. Paul is saying
No,
right now he's
no,
speaking as a man and not by the commandment of God. So by the commandment
yeah,
of God, the commandment of God would say they are still married, whether they are separated or even if it's on paper. But according to Paul, Paul is saying that even though it's on even though it's on paper, you know what I'm saying, still allow her to remain unmarried if she reconciles to her husband. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So,
no,
but again, in God's eyes, they're
I,
still married. But he's not speaking from God's commandment from this. He's speaking from a
yeah,
man's point. This is not God's command. He tells you that
yeah,
in the beginning chapter, if we read it, the whole context, like you
I,
said.
I, under, I understand what you're saying, but the premise that I'm bringing forward is Paul, even though he's speaking as a man, in this context, I'll be honest, Paul's words don't even matter in this format. Paul, even though he's speaking as a man, in this context, I'll be honest, Paul's words don't even matter in this format. Paul, even though he's speaking as a man, in this context, I'll be honest, Paul's words don't even matter in this format. Paul, even though he's speaking as a man, in this context, I'll be honest, Paul's words don't even matter in this format. Paul, even though he's speaking as a man, in this context, I'll be honest, Paul's words don't even matter in this format. Legality holds no binding, it holds no binding premise above what God says. So if God
Exactly.
says, so again, yeah, that's why I'm saying the premise that Paul is bringing forward in that, if he's saying he's speaking as a man, yeah, this is advice. This ain't law. Premise that Paul is bringing forward in that, if he's saying he's speaking as a man, yeah, this is advice. This ain't law. Premise that Paul is bringing forward in that, if he's saying he's speaking as a man, yeah, this is advice. This ain't law. Premise that Paul is bringing forward in that, if he's saying he's speaking as a man, yeah, this is advice. This ain't law. So you can actually void, and I'm gonna be bold and say this. I can actually void Paul's advice in this and just stand with what God says in this. So if I see them as still married, whether she decides to legally say, yeah, no, I'm gonna be single. You're not single, sister. You still married. You believe you
I
single in
don't
your eyes,
disagree,
and
brother.
by legality, yeah. But I would just say, nah, she's still married. She ain't single. She thinks she's single, but she not single.
Exactly. And I don't disagree, and I have nothing else to say. I'm gone, brother. Peace and blessings. That's it.
Gotcha.
Hey, I got a question.
Really quick, let me say this, guys. We got to be careful with dealing with brothers like Ebionite. And I mean no disrespect to the brother, but we just gave him a little ammo. Because now it sounds as if, I'm not saying we did, but it sounds as if we conceded that there Paul is contradicting the Messiah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.